The Bucks are in big trouble, or at least that's what I'm being told right now.
I mean, what is going on with the Milwaukee Bucks? They should be considered legit title contenders. Right now, they're looking like pretenders.
A team that should be title contenders with Giannis and Dame at the helm. I mean, they look like bottom feeders right now. No, sorry. They look like they're at the bottom being fed by the contenders here. They look like they're at the bottom being fed to the contenders.
What kind of message are you talking to the guys and saying to after a game and just like a stretch like this?
Well, we just got to dig ourselves out of this hole that we're creating. We created it, all of us, me, them, together. I have no doubt we will.
Whatever hole he's talking about they dug, it seems like it got worse as soon as he got hired as the coach. Only a coach as putrid as Doc Rivers would lack accountability and basically act like everybody else is to blame as well as, oh boy. But unfortunately, this time he might be right. It might not just be his fault here. As of now, this team is 2-8. Well, at least as of the day I started recording this video, really. And an updated look at the schedule here will let you know that ever since they lost to the Celtics, they did play the Raptors and Pistons and ended up winning both games, albeit in overtime against the Pistons. Oh, that game was interesting.
PC finding Giannis, looking for him, gets thrown down.
Thankfully, Beef Stew got ejected for what quite frankly is a dirty play here, trying to pull out the jersey while Giannis trying to dunk the ball.
Giannis looking for the slam for 59.
This man scored 59 on the Pistons, and then he proclaims to the crowd, "This is my city." Let's see the numbers here. 59 points, 14 rebounds, 7 assists. This man, Giannis, is a monster.
At the end of the day, nobody says it's going to be easy, right? I remember the year we won the championship. We didn't start the season very, very well, but at the end of the day, we never gave up.
With Giannis as the leader, how could this team really be in doubt? How could this team really be in such big trouble? With a guy like Giannis that can go for 55 at any point, how could any team even think to count these guys out?
Giannis might ask out to something.
And all of a sudden, the season's in doubt, and there's trade rumors amok, and it seems like the Bucks really need to pick a direction here. But how did we get here? How did things get this bad? Well, that's what I'll attempt to look at in this video, and the devil is indeed in the details. And I think we all know the Bucks team right now. It begins and ends with Giannis, his story. I think people are already quite familiar with his ascent in the NBA stardom and how he's captured the eyes of many around the world, including the ones in Milwaukee that he represents every night on the court. And you'd think with how early in his career he won the championship, that at 26 years old, he would repeat this very soon again. He had already come up short before that, during the years where they featured Eric Bledsoe at the point guard position. It makes you look back at that championship year and think, was it all a fluke? Well, as a big Giannis fan, I don't want to believe that to be the case. But things did fall into line during that season, during that playoff run especially. Now, shout out to Dylan Does Basketball. He did make a video recently with the storyline that the Bucks had sold their soul to the devil. Yes, Satan himself, apparently. It's quite interesting. Now, this isn't me trying to hate on the video. It's just me trying to illustrate some points that I'm trying to make here. So after losing to the Miami in the bubble, Dylan Does Basketball does posit here that, after that season, they end up playing the Heat in the first round. And up to that point in game one, there was a tight game. And that's when they made the call to Satan himself, basically telling Satan that we need to win a championship in order to keep going. Oh boy.
Jimmy Butler swooped past the Bucks defense and finished a tough layup to tie the game and send it to OT. It was gonna happen again, wasn't it? Oh man, if the Bucks lost this game, momentum would be overwhelmingly in the Heat's favor, and they'd have a real chance of winning the series. If that happened, the Bucks would have had to tear the whole team down, and they'd be the biggest laughingstocks of the league. Milwaukee feared the worst, so in an act of desperation, they called the basketball devil, and the two soon made a deal.
So the deal seems to be that they received the 2021 championship, and in return they are forever cursed. I don't mean this to be a shout out or a call out to Dylan Does Basketball. I don't even hate the video itself. I think it's an interesting way of framing the whole thing, even though obviously it's not entirely true. And I think viewers even know it when they watch the video. They're like, oh, it's funny, they're cursed. I'm going to go as far as to say you guys should check out the video if you haven't already. It's an interesting video. He does outline some of the things that obviously led to the Bucks' despair up to this point. But the premise here is simple. The Bucks were forever cursed after 2021 because they had sold their soul to the devil, or so it appears. Part of the reason why this is such an enticing storyline is because for many, it does seem like that 2021 championship run was a fluky run. I mean, it was in the first minute of this series where James Harden ended up injuring himself. And we all know he ended up not being the same Harden that we had initially seen during that 2021 season. It was quite frankly a great season for him. I think folks often forget he was in MVP convos during that year. The same people will even tell you, well, where would the Bucks be if, Kyrie didn't get hurt here on this Giannis play? You even have people to this day basically trying to bring up the fact that Giannis did this on purpose. It was him being dirty. Even though the Nets had numerous chances to beat the Bucks in this series, they're up 2-0 in this series, as well as the shot that KD ended up making here obviously was not a three-pointer, but it tied the game. And what does that same KD do in that overtime? Well, he goes for the shot again, this time airballing it. In fact, he went 0 of 6 in overtime. And a lot of people don't like to really mention that part. But guys, if they were healthy, if they were healthy, they might have beat the Bucks in that series. And with KD being healthy, he still had a chance to beat the Bucks in that series too. But it's not the same. Okay, 2-for-1, like they were not healthy, guys. I get it. It's one of those what ifs. Okay, you're always going to think about it because what if they were healthy, right? Well, it didn't seem like Harden was really believing that much that they could be healthy in a year or two because he ended up going to Philly in less than a year after that. But that's because Kyrie, the vaccine mandate and all that stuff, that's why he wanted to leave. Oh, so the team really wasn't meant to last long in that case, if Kyrie was the reason. No, Harden just wanted to leave. No, I guess I just gotta feel bad for KD. He just had bums around him. Oh boy. Well, it's funny now that those same people don't offer the same grace to the Bucks during 2022 when Middleton did get hurt in the first round of the playoffs. This man Giannis versus Boston was a monster, but he didn't have Chris Middleton on his side, the second option during that championship run. Instead, it was Drew Holiday that had to be the second option. And although he had some moments in this playoff series, he couldn't even muster up 20 points a game in this playoffs. He shot less than 40% from the field overall. He had a game where he shot 1 of 7 from the three-point line. Another game he shot 1 for 6, 3 of 10. Right, not bad. That's probably his best shooting game. Oh, you have a 4-7 there. Another 1 of 6. And what do you know? In Game 7, when he desperately needed him most, he shot 0 of 6 from deep. Oh, boy. As a matter of fact, in that Game 7 that was dubbed the Grant Williams game, he ended up scoring 7 threes by himself. And guess how many threes the Bucks ended up scoring in this game? Go ahead. Put your numbers on the comments, and I'll reply to whoever has the right answer. Nah, I won't. I actually won't. Okay, the number is, I think, 3. It seems like I was wrong. The number is actually 4. They went 4 of 33 from the three-point line, guys. One more 3 than I thought. Still historically bad for not just a Game 7, for a playoff game overall. Let's see here. Whilst the Bucks obviously aim to keep Brook Lopez deep in the paint, drop coverage, the Celtics combined shot 22 of 55 from deep. And the Bucks, measly 4 for 3, was the second worst three-point shooting performance in the playoffs ever. There's that one snapshot of Giannis just in the bench, tired after obviously falling to the Celtics. He's the first player ever to have amassed 200 plus points, 100 plus rebounds, 50 plus assists in a single playoff series. But one man cannot do it by himself. The playoffs is a team game. You gotta make it as a team. You gotta win it as a team, and they just couldn't do it. Really, Giannis was let down this series. Middleton injury also added to the fuel. And Drew Holiday as a second option. Are we kidding me? The same guy that obviously has had jabs with Giannis during this game recently. Oh, Giannis trolling him. Oh boy, the dad jokes. Right? He called him a child recently, but back then in 2022, Jaylen Brown quite literally called Giannis the best player in the world. He respected him, and he still does to this day. The amount of revisionist history that I'm seeing on the timeline and on Twitter, online, just in general, it frustrates me, but at the same time, I really just can't say much. During that Game 4 where Jimmy Butler went for like 56 points, who was he torching? It was Drew Holiday. In a closely contested game, Jimmy Butler jaws at Holiday, and he tells him, look at the scoreboard. I own you. I'm on your head. This is the same guy now that I'm being told was a mistake to trade for Dame. During that year, obviously, Coach Mike Budenholzer had unfortunately lost his brother in a car accident during that playoff series. And of course, he was going through it during that year. Well, nothing will excuse the blown leads during the series in Game 4 and 5, where they were up, I think, at least 15 in both games in the fourth quarter.
Can't do his foul. Over Matthews and good. Wow. Gabe Vincent Johnson.
Big shot from Gabe.
He's got 22. That's a postseason career high.
Oh, no, they turned it over.
They turned it over.
4 seconds left. They're up 4. Game Vincent hits a crazy clutch free. I wish he did more of that nowadays. And then Drew Holiday. Okay, let's replay this part here. Drew Holiday is scared shitless to shoot free throws. He had to pass it out in a double team to Middleton, and obviously that causes a kerfuffle, and they would have to jump it up.
Antetokounmpo has it, and he lost it into the seats, saved it to Drew Holiday.
And yes, Giannis did have his Ben Simmons moment here. He didn't want to shoot the free throws either. The guy that ended up getting fouled, Drew Holiday, misses a free throw and makes 1 of 2. And then we all know Jimmy Butler here makes a shot that I know he wouldn't make if he had tried 100 more times. And then I'll pause it here. Do you notice something here at the bottom? Do you notice the Bucks have a timeout left? They have a timeout left, half a second. If they call the timeout, they will obviously be inbounding much closer to the net. They could obviously go and elect for a Giannis lob. Not just that, but the Giannis gravity in the paint could leave somebody open for 3. Obviously, the quick release is going to be a tough one to try to release it under, half a second. But the problem is, as we all know, Coach Bud is not a good game manager when it comes to clutch time. And then they would go for nothing, really, and they go to overtime. I'm not lying to you. Mike Bud, for years, people were on his head for choking big leads in pivotal games. 2019 Game 5 against the Raptors. This will close out the series if they end up winning this game. They're up double digits in the third quarter. And it doesn't take long for the Raptors to take back the lead. Not just that, but close the game out with potential. A potential to win Game 6 on the road. Sorry, not on the road. Stupid me. The Bucks were on the road. The Raptors are at home, and that didn't change the fact that they were up 15 late in the third quarter. And then guess what? In the fourth quarter, the Raptors are up, and my Raptors ended up pulling this off, coming back down 0-2 in the series. Oh, music to my ears. Now, would you look at this 2020 bubble? They're down 0-2 in the series. They're up double digits in Game 3. Beautiful, right? They should be able to win this. They, in fact, do not win, and they're down 0-3. I wonder why. Well, it's not like Giannis didn't get hurt in the series. He did get hurt in the series, unfortunately. It's one of those what ifs yet again, a what if. But that doesn't excuse the choked lead blown. And again, a hard fall here leads to a Giannis injured back. And we would all know Giannis would not be the same after this injury during the series. But the Bucks ended up winning Game 2 without Giannis. Look at this. 3! The Bucks had to go for history, tying an NBA record 25 three-pointers made in a playoff game to beat the Heat. Okay, this was obviously one of those wins that could not be replicated. So obviously, Coach Bud would be fired, despite the fact that his brother had passed away during that series, and despite the fact that he was grieving during the coaching of that series. Now, I want to understand why people who hadn't known the previous context that I just outlined would think this is a bad move. Obviously, thinking about his brother passing, I mean, let the man grieve. I mean, he was going through it. Why would you fire him during a time of need? If anything, empower him so that he could do better next time. But this was a pattern that we had seen for years. The Bucks, in fact, during the 2021 run, you wouldn't believe this.
We have talked about how if the Bucks don't get through this, it's the first guy you look at is Mike Budenholzer.
Mike Budenholzer was in the hot seat during that 2021 playoffs. I don't think many people realize how much in the heat he was during that year. People now quote to his regular season. They go back to it all the time. Oh, look at how much better the Bucks were in the regular season with Coach Bud. He even won Coach of the Year awards because of it. Okay, he had 2 of those. But the playoffs were always a concern with Mike Bud. We had truly never seen Bud go all the way to the top. And when he did, Giannis had to have the series of his life, averaging over 35 points a game and ending the series with a 50-point closeout game. They got that trophy through the skin of their teeth. These guys were barely on the edge of losing. And not just that, had they lost that year, we would have all known who the fall guy would be. But that doesn't change that the firing was done and they hired Griffin, and all of a sudden he ends up getting fired despite them being the #1 seed at the time. Why the hell would the Bucks fire somebody who had led them to such a good record during the regular season? Not just that, but do it in the middle of his first season as a rookie head coach when you have Giannis and Dame and you're 30-13. And it all goes back to the defense. The defense was atrocious, abysmal. And obviously, many could point to the fact that Drew Holiday got traded away and that Dame was now the point of attack defender, well, the de facto point of attack. They'd have to obviously get somebody that would be better off guarding the point of attack than Dame Lillard. Some days would be Malik Beasley, others Jay Crowder. That would leave a guy like Brook Lopez obviously in the thick of it because he would have to obviously guard the paint with these guys just blown by guys easily. And obviously his drop coverage would be heavily exposed because of it. That's how the Pacers torched the Bucks in the NCAA tournament. Threes and layups, threes and layups. That's all the Pacers needed to do to win those games in the NCAA tournament and then during the season as well. The Bucks were just a traffic cone waiting to be passed through. Threes and layups, threes and layups. That's really all teams needed to do because of how flawed their roster construction was. But this wasn't all on AG. This was more so on the team, the roster construction, and the front office for mismanaging the last couple months after they lost to the Miami Heat. So when they originally hired Griffin, Holiday was still on the roster. And with Holiday on the roster, obviously the team made much more sense from a roster construction perspective. And when they traded for Dame, the problem wasn't the fact that they traded for Dame, as many people like to point out. The problem was how rushed it was. They did it weeks before the season began. They barely gave the Bucks and the coaching staff time to really get these guys on the same page. Adrian Griffin was not hired to manage a team with two all-star duos. He was hired to reinvigorate what the Bucks had already have, right? He was hired to reinvigorate the identity that they had already fostered with Mike Bud and all that. And you could tell even the front office were very concerned now that Dame was on the team. They knew, okay, we need to hire more people around Griffin so that they can, obviously help him, guide him. So Terry Stotts come in the picture, right? Well, 2 days after practice, he ends up quitting on the team. Why so? Dame even said, everybody was kind of surprised by it. It kind of came out of nowhere. I've been in this league long enough to know that these types of things happen. Everything continues, so you've got to kind of process things like this and other things that may come up and continue to move forward. Terry Stotts was hired partly because he used to coach Dame Lillard, and obviously that was meant to be a move to help Griffin guide the molding of Giannis and Dame as a duo. There was an incident that happened during shoot-around that illustrated a bit of the tensions that were going on during this season. This early on, during training camp, during shoot-arounds and practice, Adrian Griffin would obviously do a huddle with the players, but he would also announce that he wants a separate huddle with the coaches. After the huddle, Stotts reportedly left the coaches' huddle, and he walked towards both Giannis and Dame to go talk to them. Adrian Griffin then asked Terry to join back the coaches' huddle that he had originally called for, and then Stotts asked that he would be given more time to talk to Giannis and Dame, but Griffin, he did not like that. He allegedly yelled and insisted the coach to join the huddle, and Stotts suddenly resigned after that. That was obviously an incident that the team could not recover from, it seemed. And during the seasons, you would see the tension bubble up to where eventually, this was in game 2 of the season, they got destroyed by the Hawks. Not just that, but it was like the team shot 50% from the field. 8 Hawks had scored double figures during that game, and Giannis, he grabbed a marker and he began the diagramming plays to the Bucks assistant coach Josh Oppenheimer, and he was animated, he was intense, and apparently he eventually grabbed Thanasis and Bobby Portis to join him, and they were all just frustrated during the first 2 games of the season. And if you read this article, it really does outline a lot of the tension that we saw with that locker room. Griffin had been trying to install a much more aggressive defensive scheme that had Brook Lopez playing up more and blitzing ball handlers. Obviously, that contrasts with the drop coverage style that he likes to play under Mike Bud. But Brook would have to obviously move out of the paint, and that would not be so good for the Bucks. That's part of the reason their defense suffered. He wanted Brook to play more up on the ball handlers because obviously the guards, the POA defenders, were just not equipped to really guard up. Drew Holiday, the loss of Drew Holiday, that's where the impact really was felt. Brook Lopez was able to play his drop coverage defense so well because the guards that Milwaukee had with Drew Holiday and others were able to manage manage, the defense up to the point of attack in the perimeter. Now that Brook Lopez was being asked to play out of his element, it obviously led to some confusion and some frustration amongst players. In the pivotal in-season tournament game, Brook Lopez was actually able to play more inside the paint, and he had 9 blocks in his game, season high, obviously. And Adrian Griffin later conceded during that game, post-game, that he was too smart for his own good. Oh boy. Maybe I should get the quote right here. He said, "Sometimes as coaches, we're too smart for our own selves." Interesting. And the way Doc Rivers comes into this story, I think it's quite weird. I don't think I've ever seen a situation like this before. Apparently, during those past few months, Rivers had several conversations with Griffin, and he became somewhat of an informal mentor to him. Interesting stuff here. The amount of outside voices that the Bucks had to resort to calling, Lionel Hollins, namely Terry Stotts, Doc Rivers, there was a bunch of them, right? To try to help out Adrian Griffin as his rookie here and really help him out to sort a problem that the front office had partly created. And let's get into that, because this is where I get more to the angle of Giannis being to blame. And I know a lot of people that are ready to have their guns out for this one. During the 2023 offseason, Giannis was up for a second Supermax extension. And when he was asked about that extension, he made it clear that things had to happen for his decision to be firm here. He did an interview with the New York Times during that summer, and he said something that was quite interesting about the extension. Next summer, it would make more sense for both parties, even then, I don't know. I would not be the best version of myself if I don't know that everybody's on the same page. Everybody's going for a championship. Everybody's going to sacrifice time away from their family like I do. And if I don't feel that, I'm not signing. Well, this didn't just light a fire under all the players that were playing alongside Giannis. It also lit a fire under the front office to make moves to win now, and that's where the Dame move comes in. Obviously, they had fired Mike Budenholzer prior to that, hired Adrian Griffin, and this is where they led. The mess was really created then. But if people are going to fault Giannis for putting pressure on the front office to make the right moves, I don't know what to tell you. When other players do it, I guess they're able to do it because it works out for them. But since it didn't work out here, or it doesn't seem to be working out here, well, we got to revise history and act like this move is just a sin of all sins and Giannis is to be blamed for all of Milwaukee's failures. Well, this is probably what you're expecting me to say. Well, he also led the team to hire Doc Rivers, Giannis did, right? This is where you probably think I'm going to lead you to think that Giannis is to blame for also putting the team in a position to hire Glenn. Well, not quite. While yes, John Horst did want to select Nick Nurse, and Giannis was the one that basically tipped the scales to where Adrian Griffin would be hired, he was not the one that had tipped the scales for Doc Rivers to be hired. Well, after firing Adrian Griffin, John Horst was looking for a candidate, and reportedly the candidate was going to be Kenny Atkinson. And it was ownership, actually. Ownership led by new owner Jimmy Haslam. I think some Browns fans know. Oh boy, that guy. He might be one of the worst owners in pro sports. I mean, this guy's the same guy that gave Deshaun Watson how much money? 5 years, $230 million. For a contract that is fully guaranteed. This was unprecedented, even in the NFL, for a contract that lasts longer than 3 years. I think it's still to this day one of the highest total guaranteed contracts in NFL history, which is mind-boggling. I don't want to turn this to an NFL channel, by the way. I'm just letting you know how stupid this owner is, and that he's the one that hired Doc Rivers. He's the one that wanted that decision to be made. So you could point the finger at Giannis for a lot of things. You could say that Giannis's leadership is in question when he's led the front office to do these moves. But again, it's the front office that made these moves, and it's the team roster overall that has failed to deliver not just much needed wins, but much needed help alongside Giannis. When the guy's averaging 33 points, 12 rebounds, and almost 6 assists a game, there's only so much you can do with that much load to carry, okay? Damian Lillard obviously recently had a concussion, but his numbers aren't too bad either. But the last game he played against the Celtics, he put up a whopping 14 points. He shot a tour date, and apparently he's about to be on tour during my birthday. 415 shooting! Let's go, Dame! Like, I know things didn't work out with Glorilla, but 415, bro? Like, what's going on with you, Dame? Are you regressing back to what you were last season? Are you trying to win games, bro? And I hate to be that guy, but is it a coincidence that the Bucks end up winning the last 2 games without him? After he obviously is evaluated and it says that he is concussed. Is it a coincidence that Giannis ends up scoring 59 points in a game that Dame doesn't play in? Is it a coincidence that Dame ends up scoring 36 points here in this game where Giannis didn't play? Again, these are things that have obviously need to be fixed. Okay, they need to be fixed for this team to advance. But as far as where the team is today, yes, you could point some blame to Giannis. He's the leader of the team, so he's gonna have to, carry the brunt of the criticism. That's the way it is. It's fine. Giannis himself says that they won't give up. He's not gonna quit on this team. Bobby Marks, I'll get to this as well, said on a recent appearance on NBA Today that the Bucks were not looking to move Giannis. Not just that, but Giannis isn't trying to leave Milwaukee. So this is something that I don't think is going to happen in the near future. If anything, they would need to lose 10 straight games in the next 10 games. And let's see who they're playing in the next 10 games. Charlotte Hornets, Houston Rockets, Chicago Bulls, Pacers, Hornets again, Heat, Washington Wizards, Pistons, Atlanta Hawks. So during these games here, I think there's only 2 teams, the Pacers and the Heat, that have been in the playoffs last season. And the Heat look to be regressing even further down, with Tyler Hero now seemingly being the best player on the team. The Pacers, with Tyrese Halliburton seemingly looking like he's not even the first option on the team anymore. The Bucks may have a good chance of going undefeated in this stretch before they meet the Celtics on December 6th, of course. But that's obviously probably not going to happen because the Bucks are probably going to struggle to beat some of these teams, as we've seen earlier in the schedule. And obviously that last game against the Pistons, Giannis had to score 59 for them to win in overtime. I mean, come on. Now, here's where I propose to the Bucks fans that there is a ray of hope. Okay, the Bucks have an easier schedule now, and so they could end up going, 9-1 in the next 10 games. And what does that leave them with? They're 4-8 right now. Another 9 wins, that adds 13 wins to their 9 losses. So that's 13-9 record after 10 games if they end up going 9-1. Okay, say you're a bit of a pessimist or a realist and you're like, okay, no. The Bucks are probably going to lose 4 of those 10 games, 6-4. Okay, so the Bucks will win 10 games and lose out on 12 games. So you're 10-12. That's not too bad in the Eastern Conference, which currently features only 3 teams that are over 500. All the other teams are under 500 as of now. The Bucks, if they just win 3 more games, they'll be 7-8. Not just that, they'll be 7-8, probably 4th seed, probably a 5th seed or a 6th seed if some of these teams end up losing more games. Look, the Bucks may well be a top 4 seed with a record that is below 500 or even close to over 500. Look, it's one of those things. The Bucks really could make the playoffs despite all these struggles because they're in a conference that, quite frankly, is historically weak. But is that going to make Giannis happy? That's the question that a lot of people come away with when seeing this current drama, the current circus going on in Milwaukee. Is Giannis going to eventually ask out of Milwaukee? It's a concern that a lot of people have, obviously. Some people obviously try to dismiss it by saying, well, Giannis, he's loyal to Milwaukee. I mean, in that same game that I showed against the Pistons, he had that nasty 3-point celebration, made it look seemingly like he had a third leg. But he was also saying, this is my city. This is what I am. Clearly, you could see him mouthing the words, this is my city. This is where I'm from. This is my home. There's just no way someone like that is going to all of a sudden want to leave Milwaukee, right? And this is where I come in saying, well, it might not be Giannis's choice at the end of the day. It might not be Doc Rivers who coaches this team in the future, in the near future, that is. John Horst could either call an end to this experiment, blow up the entire team, try to recover as many assets as he can for the future, or he ends up getting ousted himself. There's rumors that apparently Doc Rivers is going to be promoted to the front office. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. John Horst might not be there for long either. And at that point, who knows what the owner would want at this point? I mean, Haslam probably is going to lead them to blow up the team up regardless. I mean, Giannis is probably going to want to leave after seeing all the mess that has become of Milwaukee. I don't expect things to happen very soon, like in February. I think a lot of these developments will really take place during the summer. If the Bucks don't end up making much of a deep run in the playoffs, I expect the same quotes from Giannis talking about how he wants to be in Milwaukee, he wants to win a championship in Milwaukee, and that he wants everybody to be on the same page. As for Damian Lillard, his value around the league is dwindling, and so maybe the front office, if they see this experiment not working, might feel compelled to trade him, obviously to get as much assets in return before eventually he regresses to not just the mean, but really to him being a perennially washed player, joining the ranks of a Westbrook or a Harden. As for Chris Middleton, he's always hurt. He probably won't come back this season. And if he does, he's probably going to play 10 games at a time until he ends up not playing anymore. And we might see a glimmer of the Chris that we saw in 2021, even the Chris that we saw in the 2023 playoffs. But unfortunately, Chris is probably not going to be the same player that, is having to carry much of the load for this team anymore. I really come away from a lot of this thinking that Brook Lopez is the next guy out. Bobby Portis, I'm not sure how much value he has around the league. He would definitely be the first guy I'd think of trading. The problem is, though, the Bucks are in the second apron. They would have to make a trade that would put them under the second apron with multiple players being involved for them to be able to trade multiple players at a time. The problem is, Milwaukee probably won't be able to do that with Bobby and Brook together in a package. They would have to obviously trade them individually. Maybe they get Brook for a return that is, quite underwhelming for what he could have gotten you in 2023. But the problem is the Bucks need to do something now. They need to make a move now to win. Brook Lopez seemingly it doesn't fit the archetype this team is trying to go for anymore. The Milwaukee Bucks, notoriously a team that is not known for developing their players. They have a bunch of young players that I think they should try to play more, obviously. Not just them, but Ajax and AJ Green should get way more minutes. Ryan Rollins now starting whilst Dame is not playing. He's been interesting. I think the Bucks, they can indeed go younger, and that could indeed, spark something from them. Only problem is Doc Rivers is not a coach that's well known for playing young guys. Not just that, but I don't know that a player like Giannis will want to play with guys that aren't experienced enough in the limelight of a playoff series that is grueling. Not just that, but it's going to be hard for a team to try to acclimate these young guys to the pressures of a postseason that is, months long if you want to win a championship. I desperately wish for the Bucks to turn this around, not just because Giannis is my favorite player by far in this league, but also because it would make for a great story. It will obviously make for a lot of people being proven wrong, a lot of people be looking stupid, and that's where I come in and make a 7-hour documentary about the Greek freak with his Greek meat. Okay, let me stop there. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. It's a different style from what I usually do on this channel. I recently made a 5-hour video about Joel Embiid, his career, and all the stuff that he said, does, and obviously the bullshit in between. I hope you guys go check it out if you haven't already. I think this video is worthy of your attention. It's a great video. As a matter of fact, I'll even link it to you in the end screen so that you can click on it, not have to scroll for my channel. All right, boys, I hope you guys enjoyed it again. Like, subscribe, comment, all those fun things. Peace out.